Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well. I want to share a story with you today about a mum. I've been working with her daughter, and long story short, I gave her some advice that she ended up passing on to the school teacher, and the advice that I gave her ended up, the teacher says, impacting all of the children in the classroom. And I want to share with you today what that advice was. So this little girl, like many children that are deep feeling children or highly sensitive children, they often forget how lovable they are, how loved they are, how amazing they are, how good enough they are, just as they are, without doing anything, without doing well at maths, without pleasing their teacher, no matter how they feel. They don't have to be calm, like no matter what. And this little girl, like many children, would get really frustrated and angry when things were not going perfectly well. By the way, like, it's never going to go perfectly well, is it? Like, we're humans. But when we don't fully believe that who we are is enough, just as we are, we start to feel like we have to prove our worth. And this little girl, she was only about 6 years old, really had a belief, a repetitive thought that often is going on at the back of the unconscious mind. This belief that she had to prove how good she was. She had to get her homework perfectly right. Now, this was becoming a problem because if she didn't get something perfectly right, let's say that she was drawing and it didn't go the way she wanted it to go or the way she thought it needed to go, she would start to get really angry. So she would get the piece of paper, she would crumple it up, she would throw it, and her parents were just left thinking, what the heck has just happened? Why is she reacting this way? So I taught mum what was going on. You know, as I often say, that one of the biggest stressors is when we don't actually understand why something is happening in our life. So when I first start working with a family, like from the get-go, I don't, have long-winded conversations about their child. I very quickly can get to the point. I understand why children act the way that they do and behave the way that they do. I understand, and because I understand, I don't need the background. I mean, obviously I need a certain amount of background, but I don't need long-winded ins and outs conversations. Because I don't need the parents to help me understand why this behaviour is happening. Like, I already understand it before we even get onto our first Zoom meeting. And so in the first meeting, I explained to mum why this was happening. Like, your little girl right now has this repetitive thought, we call it a belief, that she isn't good enough just as she is, and so she's scared of she's scared of making mistakes, because she thinks making mistakes means something about who she is. Like, oh look, see, my work is rubbish, therefore I told you I'm rubbish, like I can't do anything right, that type of thing. So I explained this to her, and I said, I taught her how to do the nighttime part of the Calm Talk method, which enables a parent to speak to their child's subconscious mind, the part of the brain that's storing all of these very unhelpful, confidence destroying beliefs. I taught her how to speak to that part of the brain that's holding on to those beliefs of I'm not good enough, etc. And I'll only deserve to be loved, when I get this work perfectly right. It's just not a way for us to live, is it? Because we need to know that we can make mistakes. So mum was doing the nighttime part of the method, and I said, here's what I call the daytime part of the Calm Talk method. Here's some things that you can start to say to her during the daytime. One of them is start to use words that really communicate to her the message that you love her no matter what. And we can't be general about this. Like, we need to make sure she understands that in the moment she's screwing up her homework because she thinks that it's not okay to make mistakes, because this going wrong means that she's not good enough, you need to be able to speak to her in a way that in that moment reaches her, that in that moment corrects that belief, okay? Because it's not true. That belief needs to be changed because it's not helpful to her. It's not helpful for her to believe that she'll only be lovable and worth loving and good enough as a human being when she gets everything perfectly right. Like, can we all agree that that's just not a helpful belief for any of us to have? So I said, you need to have words that are really going to start to, in that moment when she's believing that lie, correct it. So one of the ways that I helped her start to help her daughter change this belief she was holding on to, because this belief was driving, like creating these feelings, these big feelings that she was having. One of the things I suggested that she said to her was, when she starts to do her homework, to say to her daughter, just before you start to do your homework, I want to remind you that I don't need you to get this all perfectly right for me to love you. I love you whether you get this right or make mistakes or not. My love won't change for you. Just let that land a moment, because nobody had ever spoken to me in this way before I was 33. So for me, this is quite a normal thing now, because I'm 43. So I've been teaching this kind of language for years now, and I've heard it for years. But let that land. How does that feel if I said to you, whatever happens at work today, I don't need you to get that thing right or do well with that thing for me to really care about you. Like, my feelings towards you won't change. It's powerful stuff, isn't it? So she started to say this to her daughter, and honestly, you know, within 2 weeks of doing this, like the first couple of times, her daughter just literally melted, came to her mum and dad for hugs and cuddles, and you know, she completely like stopped a meltdown in its tracks. That meltdown didn't need to keep going because her daughter got what she needed from her mum in that moment through the words that she was saying. They really reached her. But then this mum took this one step further, and I can't remember whether I suggested she spoke to the teacher, because sometimes I do say, look, you know, if this is a problem, if this is an issue that is like connected to school, then you might want to have a chat with the teacher and see if they will use some of this language as well. I think I did suggest that she did this. I normally do if it's connected with school, like I say. Anyway, she texted me this morning and said that I had a check-in with the teacher to see how it's going. And she said the teacher is pretty wowed by it. She said it's going like amazingly well. And not only is it going well, like as in helping your daughter, but get this, the whole class are benefiting from this. She's obviously using this language. She's obviously saying to all of the children, the words that I suggested were along the lines of, I don't need you to get this work perfectly right for me to really like you. I still think really good thoughts about you. I really like you. I still like you, whether you get this work right or not. You can make mistakes and I will still like you. You don't need to get it perfectly right. Turns out she's been saying this to the whole class, and turns out the whole class have been benefiting, whatever that means. Like, I'm guessing that means at least 5 or 6 children in that classroom I've sighed a relief, because so many children are worried about getting into trouble with their teacher, even when they've got the most loveliest of teachers. So I just wanted to share this because it's a reminder of a few things, but I want to highlight one of the main things that this is a reminder of, that when you stop letting everybody else like tell you how it is with your child, stop relying on teachers to know it all, because they don't know everything about why your child feels the way that they do. That isn't something that they've trained in to the extent that you would need. Okay, it's not their job, is it really? But when you stop relying on everyone else to lead you, and instead you say, do you know what, I'm going to get to the bottom of why my child is feeling this way, and then not only that, I'm actually going to pass some info on to the teacher. So I'm going to lead them and ask them, you know, hey, we've been doing this at home, it's working really well, no expectations, but I wondered if you'd be willing to say this to our daughter, because I think she's really worried about getting into trouble. So I think if you could say something like this, we've been learning a few things with someone who like specialises in children that think and feel very deeply. We wondered if you would try this and see how it goes. Like, when you pass on information to a teacher, in my experience, especially this year, parents keep coming to me and saying, wow, like the teacher's willing to do it. Like in this case, the teacher has been wowed by this. Not only has it benefited our daughter, it's now benefited the whole of the class. Like, what an incredible feeling that parent must have. And how grateful must that teacher be, because she's trying to teach her pupils, her children. She doesn't know that at least several children in that classroom won't be able to focus properly, because part of their focus is being lost on worrying about making a mistake and not pleasing the teacher. So when we all work together like this, when we get information, when we learn ourselves, when we pass it on, like to a teacher in this case, so many teachers will be grateful, because they just want to know, how can I support your child to be able to focus and learn? Because my job is to teach them, so can you help me to get them on board so that they can focus? And this was just a really cool story to remind us again that when we take the lead, when we learn something that we haven't learned before, and we put it into practice, and we then pass it on, like in this case to a teacher, like you just never know what's going to happen. And I predict in the next 6 to 8 weeks, their daughter is going to feel very different in the classroom. Perhaps not completely relaxed, because a lot of sensitive children struggle in busy environments, and they can struggle with the workload and, you know, don't want to make mistakes, don't want to get into trouble. But what an incredible story that this little girl is now not only hearing from her mum at home the messages and words she needs to hear, but she also now has a school teacher. I would have loved this as a little girl. She now has a school teacher that is saying the same kind of thing that her mum and dad are saying. So now, this is what I talk about with my Calm Talk method. I talk about this 24/7 loop. A child needs, for inner security to really build, a child needs to be hearing a consistent message, you know, that you are lovable and you are loved by me and you are good enough, no matter how you feel, no matter what you do. So that was my story for this week. If you've got any other stories yourself, if you've been using my method and you have a story, do send it in. You can send it in to jen@sensitivechild.co.uk, or send it in to me on Instagram, and you never know, we might bring it up onto YouTube, because the whole purpose of this is to inspire other parents that are the type of parents that are looking for solutions, but everything they've tried so far hasn't made a difference. So your story can really give somebody else hope. Thanks for tuning in today, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.